It's Wednesday, June 8th, and it's another day here at the West End Gun Club here at the Rimfire Range. Took another day off from work in the middle of the week to come out here and just do a little shooting. Did just want to bring out the 1022 to get another zero with it at 50 because I was messing around with it last time I was out with the trigger cam and then during the NRL 22 walkthrough. I don't think I have it set to a 50-yard zero with the Eley ammo I was using in it, but I'm gonna try also the contact ammo because I still have a box and a little bit more than a box. I think maybe 10 more rounds out of the, because I only got two 50-round boxes of the contact when I ordered a bunch of Eley to test out. But then I have the, I think it's Semi-Auto Bench which I thought was shooting great when I was testing it out. I think the SDs are really low, but I think I'm gonna get a couple more bricks of that for the 1022. Because I haven't had any jams so far with it like I did early on. But I think that ammo might be nice for the 1022 given the SDs, the standard deviations. And then I did want to bring out one other item that if you follow my Instagram, you already know what it is. I didn't post it. It's a story, so the post expired and it auto-deleted, but I did post on Instagram a new acquisition for my Vudoo. But let's go ahead and get unpacked and set up a couple targets out there, and then we'll start shooting. Being that it's June, we're rolling right into summer here in Southern California. Clear day, sun is out, it's starting to warm up quite a bit. We've been in the low 90s in Riverside the past few days, but it's June, so it's to be expected. We should be rolling into 90s all through the rest of the month, I'm pretty sure. And then come July and August, we'll be hitting those 100-degree temps. Anyway, I'm a Vudoo Gun Works V-22 here, and if it looks slightly different, it's because it's in a new chassis. This is the Masterpiece Arms Matrix Pro Chassis. This came out just this year, and I wanted to get the Matrix last year just to try it out. And then when they announced the Pro, they said they redesigned it so it balances a little better. It's not as rear heavy as the original Matrix, which a lot of people complained about. I said, let me try it out. And they came up with a new weight system because there's internal weights inside this forend. And I'll have photos on my blog. I'm gonna do an article on this because I've already found some things that I've had issues with, at least one or two things. And so I've got weights in here already. They were purchased from Gray Ops CNC. They made the weights for them, and it's all hidden inside here in the bottom. It's a pretty cool system, although it is a pain to adjust because you basically slide in from the front. You don't take out you can do it while the barrel action's inside the chassis. You're basically just sliding the weights from front to back. So if you want to remove weights from this end, you have to pull them all out because they're all screwed in. But thankfully you can kind of test the balance a little bit by just sliding them in, and as long as you don't tip it forward, it won't slide out. But if you just want to check balance real quick, you can just slide them in and not screw them directly into the chassis because the screws come in from the bottom end. Anyway, for the longest time, originally when I built the Vudoo, I was running the Masterpiece Arms BA Comp, which is a great chassis in my opinion, and there's nothing wrong with it. For all purposes, I think there's a lot of good things about it. I mean, I won't say there's nothing wrong with it. There's a few, I mean, I'm sure people will find faults with it, but I feel like this is a great all-around chassis, and you should be pretty happy with it. That being said, when I had this Vudoo in this chassis, I had it with the SkyPod installed. It was pretty balanced right around this point. If I put it on the clamp of the tripod and let it sit, it wouldn't tip forward or backwards. It was right there. I would have wanted to be a little more front heavy, but let me put this on the table in front of the camera. So I'll tell you right now, my disappointment with the MPA Matrix Pro initially is that it's still going to be a little back heavy. I've got trying to tip the weights here with the SkyPod. It's still going to be back heavy. Actually, today, right now that I'm doing this, is actually balancing a little bit better than at home, and I'm pretty sure that the if you let it sit there, it'll kind of tip backwards. But anyway, I have full weights in here, which I had hoped that I could just run it on the front end, so it was not as heavy, because the more weights you put in there, the more heavy it's going to be. And you know, it's got a longer forend than the BA Comp. Sorry, let me grab that. So it does have a longer forend, so you got more of a fulcrum point if you put the weights here. So I would have hoped I would have been able to get a lighter gun, but balance it out better with less weights, but it's not working out. I do have the outside weights coming in from Gray Ops. I ordered those this past Monday, so I'm gonna it can fill up the external slots here, but what I'm gonna do is just try to run the front ends first and see how that balances, and then if not, then I'll try, you know, the rears as well. But at that point, I think it's probably going to be tipping past right close to 20 pounds. My MPA BA Comp without the SkyPod is 18.6. The Vudoo and the MPA BA Comp. I didn't weigh this yet because I wanted to do it after I put all the weights in. But based on feel, I've already think this configuration is already heavier than the MPA BA Comp at 18.6. But one other thing I wanted to note here right now is when I received the Matrix Pro, this mag latch was like, it moved really freely, like it was loose. Like if you it would just flop around, right? And you can just shake it. And like if you just barely tip it, it would just rattle. And I was like, this is normal. I recorded a video, sent it to MPA, and they said, well, the springs are going to be a little different because of the holes are deeper than on the MPA BA Comp, and it might have a different feel to it. But in my opinion, that was just way too loose, because what was happening is when I put in the magazine, the Vudoo mag, there were times where it wouldn't catch. You would just slide directly back out. And if you barely tapped the release lever, it would just fall out. Like this alone, like what I'm doing here, would have caused it to fall out. And what I surmised was, compared to the MPA BA Comp, sorry, I'm just kind of tipping in front of the camera here. So if you look at this lever here, it's really tight to the, because there's a God, just come up with words here. There's a pin here. There's a single pin that holds the lever in place, and there's a spring above, like on the above the pivot, so on the fulcrum point. So what the spring is doing is pushing pressure out this way, so it forces the lever. It forces this lever like kind of like this. So what's happening is it's engaging the magazine with that spring tension, and it's pretty tight, right? And this is actually really hard, and it won't, you know, any little tap won't rattle it. Now, what I surmised with this lever is that the spring didn't have enough force, or wasn't long enough to keep this lever tensioned this way, because again, like I said, it would just, the way it was when I received it, the lever was flopping, and at the rest point, it was actually not tensioned close to the receiver or the action. So when after I sent them the video and before they responded, I pulled the lever out, and I saw the spring was actually kind of compressed and bent, like it was kind of warped. And I had another spring from a spare BA Comp magazine catch, and I pulled that out of my spare parts bin, and I compared them, and the spring was a little bit longer and it wasn't bent. So I put that one in here, and it's much better now, but I would have preferred that the tension of this, I would like more force at the rest position, because what that would mean is it's engaging the the magazine, you know, the magazine hump or whatever, where it locks the lever or locks the magazine on, that contact point would be secured much better. So like if I put pressure this way, you know, it's not going to rattle, right? If I put a lot of pressure, if I'm going to simulate that spring tension pivoting this way, if I hold this magazine lever like this, there's no rattle. But if I don't hold it, there is rattle because it's got room to move, and you can see the lever moving. So barring that, I do have more springs coming in from the supplier that MPA uses for the springs. I asked them for the spring spec. They gave that to me. I think this spring in here, the length is like 0.463 or something. So I ordered the same spring outer diameter, inner diameter, and with a longer length coiled up. So it's going to be like, I think I ordered one with a 1/2 inch and one with 0.53 or something. So I'm going to try the 1/2 inch, or I'm going to try the 0.53 first to see how that goes. If it works fine without causing issues, I'm going to run that one because I just want more pressure there. Unfortunately, when we go with the longer springs with that same diameter, the spring rate is actually less. So I'm not entirely sure if that's going to work out, because the spring rate should, you want a very heavy spring rate in order for this to cause that kind of tension or that spring back force. And length of a spring won't really do that per se, but we'll see. Unfortunately, the supplier they use, their springs are expensive. They're really expensive for a small spring. And I'm not sure if it's because you're buying low volume, because I only bought like one, and I end up having to buy like one of different material types just to get over this $40 minimum charge, so you don't get a handling fee. So I spent a lot of money just to get these spare springs, and I tried to make Master Car, and I ordered some from them, but they didn't have the same type. So we'll see. We'll see what this experiment looks like, but I feel like this spring that they've included so far is not going to work very well, especially for these Vudoo mags. Anyway, anything else I wanted to mention before I before I test fire this thing? Because I did adjust the mag catch to make sure that the round should feed, I think. I actually didn't dry test it at home. Not really much else to say. Oh yeah, I guess I should mention this. Oh, let me come around this side. Well, actually, I'll show you this side. So one of the features on this Matrix Pro is this buttstock. This is kind of a unique add for the Matrix Pro. If you see here, this is a button here. If I press this button, it springs down this, what do I want to call this? The rider, if you want to call it the bag rider. So the reason why this is actually interesting is because, especially for places like this rimfire range that we shoot at, if you've ever come to our range here, it's got the 50-yard line, or at the 50-yard impact area is flat. But once you go past that, it goes up like 6 feet. There's a ledge, and it goes another 4 feet. And so you're basically shooting at 20 feet in the air, I guess, and you're shooting this up angle, maybe 10 degrees, 12 degrees. And so what that often does, if you watch a shoot here, is that if you need to shoot the 50-yard target, then a 100-yard target, what you're doing is shooting, and then you're trying to adjust your position to move it higher. So you're going to run tall bipod height most often. And I'll just kind of simulate that here. If I get my bipod to lever out, you're going to run tall bipod, and then you're going to have to adjust your bag, because your bag has to be set for flat ground, and then you're going to have to flatten your bag, kind of like thin it out, just so you can shoot tall. But in kind of that situation, instead of doing that, what you can do is, for the I don't know, it takes a lot of practice, but what you'll do is, if you're going to shoot at the up angle like that, you can just ride your bag rider in this position, and then when you need to come down to when you need to shoot flat ground, you'll keep it down like this, right? Because you're going to be more leveled off, and then when you need to shoot at a higher angle, you can just compress that, and then you have your bag rider like this, and it's less manipulation of the bag. It's an interesting concept, just to get more height on your rear end very quickly. It's spring loaded, but we'll see how this goes. I think it has some added benefits, but obviously you're going to need to practice with this to learn how to use it in a time situation. And now I'll show you the right side. And the gun is unloaded, just so you guys are worried about that. But so the Matrix Pro does have this one deal. The grips are interchangeable, so you can take this. The grip is part of the chassis, but this outer plastic deal, you can adjust the palm swell, so that's cool. And then you can order different ones. And I went with verticals. And then they got two more things that you can swap out. There's this thumb ledge, which you can they have like different ones where you can run it at an angle or flat. I went with more of the angle. I like that one better, just to rest it better. I don't want to force my thumb down. And then there's this deal here behind the trigger guard. With the MPA BA Comp, their grip, it was integrated into the grip. There's this little swell here. So what happens is when you put your trigger finger over this to the trigger, this swell over here keeps your trigger, like your index finger, a little bit more straight. And then when you curl in, so what you're doing is you're going to keep this part of your hand straighter when you're pulling the trigger. So it's not like this. You're more keeping this, forcing this straight. But you know, obviously hands are different. I got small hands, so I went with the smaller ledge here. You can take, this is a single screw, you pop it off, you can put larger ones. I went with the smallest one. I feel that one's best for me. I think I can go with a medium if I decide to change it. I might go with a medium now that I'm looking at it, but right now the feel of it, I like the feel. Keeps my pad right there with this this ledge right here. And then I think it's 3 screws to swap out the thumb rest. All in all, I think the Matrix Pro is an interesting design. I think they've got some good features here. It just, at least for a short barrel, like a 20-inch MTU barrel action, it seems like it doesn't balance. I mean, I'm sure with a 24, it'll balance perfectly because you've got more of that barrel weight up front, and you got your muzzle brake or whatever. I got all that weight out there. But it's so hard to balance these 22s. If you're running these 700 actions, you just really can't do that very effectively with a lot of these chassis. I think the MDT ACC, you can do that simply because they've got such a long forend and you get the weights far out there. But I think if I ran an MDT ACC with a 20-inch, my forend would be right here, I think, right at my muzzle. And I mean, looks aside, I mean, I just don't like that idea. Anyway, MPA Matrix Pro, look for a review after a couple of months. I've already taken some photos of this thing. And as I work through all the nuances that I'm finding with the Vudoo and the Matrix, I'll have a review out there for people who are interested. As far as the BA Comp, I'm not going to sell this. I'm going to keep this. Number one, I thought I was going to get another. I'm still wanting to get another Vudoo, maybe. I'm still actually debating on getting a Rim-X, to be honest, but I just don't want to have two different actions, 2 different rimfire actions in a 700 pattern and have to run different mags and stuff. And I don't know. There's so many things I want to do. It's just, you know, it's all about money and funds. And I still want to build another centerfire, but actually I want to build a lightweight, so I wouldn't use this for a lightweight. I would probably get the XLR. Anyway, let's go ahead and just run some test firing on this. I actually didn't bring my mat. I don't want to shoot prone. I'm going to try to shoot off a barricade, and we'll see how this feels. MPA has an adjustable mag catch, so I did adjust this before I came here, and it feeds fine. The issue at hand is, if you can see here, you notice that the mag moves when I'm operating the bolt. It's because if you notice, the mag catch moves as well. I don't know if you're seeing this on camera. My lens is so wide angle, so you might not be able to see it. But you see there's this movement here. If I put more force on the lever to simulate spring tension going out that way to cam this lever towards the trigger guard, if I do that, the magazine stays relatively still. I think this has an issue in terms of, this causes some issues as far as, I don't know, the magazine movement. But here's the one thing that does affect. Tension on the bottom of the mag towards this way has no problem, because actually that's kind of where the magazine wants to be. It's kind of tilted this way. But forward, the second you move it forward, if you notice how this mag lever moves, that'll cause the round to sort of hang up if you try to force it in there, because it's going to change the angle. Same with side pressure. If you put side pressure, what's happening is it's going to tilt the mag this way, and sometimes it causes the mag to go a little bit upward on this top side here on the right side, and that might cause it to hang up. Same with this side, camming this way. My MPA BA Comp didn't really have that issue. I think because of that spring tension, and also because I have that spacer, and I don't know if the spacer will work in here, because there's a little plastic spacer that you can put in here to mitigate this magazine movement, like towards the, I think it's towards the, actually that won't really do anything if I put the, I don't think that'll help much. I'm not entirely sure. Actually, it might help with the, because the hump of the magazine body where the catch rides onto might be mitigated in terms of movement, so that spacer here might work. But right now, this could be an issue in terms of feeding, because if I put any sort of side pressure, that might cause a jam. And I'll try to do it right here. That's loaded mag, side pressure, that'll load. Should put my ears in so I can fire off this round without having to eject it. Trying to find my target here. I just put a small target out there at 60 roughly. So eject, fired around. Let's eject. I'm going to put side pressure, kind of hard pressure on the bottom left, because that'll feed just fine. Eject. I'm going to put pressure this way, hard pressure, seems fine. Whoa. Now let's put up pressure. That's where it causes a jam. Well, I was actually able to force it in there, but put more pressure here. Yeah, actually it's not a problem anymore. It wasn't earlier. It was earlier when I was doing this. Now let's put pressure this way. No, this way. Bottom pressure up and like towards the top. That seems to ride fine. Weird. So I was able to induce some problems in the strings before this. So I have no idea what's going on here, but this is kind of the nuance with these rimfires in the magazine. So I know I've had that problem with the MPA BA Comp before, is if you put upward pressure, basically my bolt won't close. If you put any kind of forward pressure like this, sometimes it'll induce a failure to close or failure to go into battery. But generally, you just don't want to be touching the mag with any sort of hard pressure during your shooting evolution or whatever. At least in my opinion. Center fires, not so much. I've never had that much of a problem, but rimfire, it's been an issue. But it seems like I'm not able to induce it on camera now that I'm talking. Before I was able to induce it, but there you go. Now that's a jam. That's a jam. But I'm really distorting the mag with that kind of pressure. So I don't know. We'll play with this right now. I'll leave the magazine where it's at, but I still want to address this. I want to address this spring tension on this mag lever. I think this is a problem. I don't know why mine is just like this. So hopefully those longer springs will help. If not, I don't know what to do. Maybe put like a little, maybe I'll manufacture like a small little spacer to put inside that hole, and then before the spring, so that's less travel. I don't know. It's like less depth on that hole, so there's more of the spring out. I want to address this issue because I don't think this is good for rim fire. I mean, center fire, I don't think it's gonna be a problem, but if you notice, I feel like this is causing too much slop. If you had more pressure here such that the lever stays engaged, this magazine won't have as much movement, especially front to back. Front to back, if you notice, it's flopping, but if I hold it in place, it doesn't move. So we'll see. Obviously, you don't want too much spring tension. Well, you can still cam it out. Even if you have a lot of spring tension, you should still be able to, you should be able to press forward to eject your mag. But we'll see. It's an overview of my paper target. This is with the 1022. Top side was done with the Semi-Auto 22 LR Benchrest Precision by Eley. Just trying to get a zero here. I think I got it figured out. The groups aren't all that great. This is 10 shots, I think 10 shots. This is a 5-shot group, 5-shot group, 5-shot group, some up and down. But I think I got my elevation where I wanted it. But I fired this 5-round group on top of this number 3 right here, and I think that's pretty decent. It's not all that great. I figure it's less than about half a minute, under half a minute. Sorry, half an inch. So it's about a minute of angle at 50 yards. Maybe it's less than half if you do edge to edge, right? Or if you do center to center, it's gonna be less than half an inch. Either way, I don't think it's too bad, considering, for all intents and purposes, it's a slap together 1022. It's a factory Ruger action with a Volquartsen barrel and a KRG stock, and factory trigger with a Volquartsen trigger kit or whatever. Bottom half is Eley contact, 5 rounds, then 5 rounds and 5 rounds. It's not all that great. I actually tried to hold this, but it's shooting a little bit. For all intents and purposes, I think you can see it's maybe a little, almost equal to some of the Semi-Auto Benchrest Precision, but I think what you're seeing here is a lot more deviation in terms of the spread of the group, and I figured this is a little bit more controlled. The up and down, you can invariably think a shooter, and it's got a little tighter group for what you can see here compared to these. So I'm going to get more of this Semi-Auto Benchrest Precision. I think my 1022 likes it, and I think it'll be suitable for this configuration. I thought about building a new 1022, but I just don't feel like spending the money on that sort of project right now. I figured there's other things I want to spend my money on. So I think this will be suitable for fun and maybe letting someone shoot a semi-auto. And it functions. I haven't really had any malfunctions so far. I think it just needs to be run through it, and I need to clean it every so often because 1022s get dirty pretty quickly, so the cycling of the bolt could get affected. Anyway, not bad for this ammo in the 1022. About to pack up my gear and get out of here. It is getting busy at the range and it's getting hot. You can hear around me, there's a bunch of people on the bays behind me, which are usually not used on a Wednesday because people would just use one of the other bays farther down range, because there's plenty of bays down range or farther down that way. Anyway, good morning. Got my 1022 rezeroed, resighted in, got my turrets zeroed out. It's not a zero stop, but I got my turrets set to zero. The Vortex Diamondback isn't like really good at scope, but it's good enough for that. As far as the Matrix Pro, I got this. I played around with this. I'm liking it so far. A little disappointments in some things like the trigger, or sorry, not the trigger, but the mag catch, which I'm going to have to figure out. It feeds, so lots of concerns about Vudoo's and what chassis you put it in and what bottom metal, whether or not it'll feed properly. But it is feeding. It does have slight issues when you put pressure on the mag, but that's not uncommon, and it's not something I can't work out. So once I get those new springs in this week, I'm gonna try to play around with that and see if that addresses this issue that I think is mainly caused by the spring for the mag catch or the mag release lever. Lots of flies out here today too. It's annoying. As far as my MPA BA Comp, I'm going to keep this around, not going to get rid of it. It's a great chassis. If I get another 700 pattern action, it can go into this. If I get another Vudoo, it can go into this. But if I build my lightweight, which I want to build a lightweight center fire, it won't go into this. I'll have to get a lighter chassis for that. Now, as far as our match coming up, the June match for the West End Gun Club, aka SoCal Precision Rifle Team, NRL22 Club, that's on Sunday, June 26th. Definitely come out. It's going to open up. I'm going to open up registrations this Saturday on Practice Score, so definitely check out the link I'll put in the video description to register if you're interested in coming out on Sunday, June 26th. And just a early heads up, it'll be in the email for those of you who are on the email list to get the match alerts, registration alerts for our matches. We will be giving out one 50% off gift certificate of an Oryx chassis, courtesy of Oryx. They sent a couple of those to me. I'm going to give out one during our first match of the season. It'll be a random drawing. It's not going to be for like top shooter or anything. It'll just be a random drawing for any participant. You just have to finish the match though. You have to shoot in all 5 stages. You just can't register not shooting and being in a drawing. Don't want to do it like that. So definitely for the match participants, and obviously if you DQ, you get disqualified for the drawing. But it'll just be a random draw. So definitely come out, and you can win a 50% off certificate for an Oryx chassis. If you're not familiar with Oryx chassis, Oryx is with MDT. I think MDT owns that brand, but they do have a chassis, and it's for a bunch of different actions, centerfire actions as well as rimfire actions, including Tikas, CZs. I think they do Ruger 1022s. So there's a bunch of actions. So definitely, if you're interested, want a chance of winning a cool prize, shoot our match, and you can be in the drawing. Anyway, that's it for today, June 8th? June 8th. Is it June 8th? June 8th, yeah. June 8th, Wednesday, here at the West End Gun Club. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vlog.